All right, yo. What's going on, everyone? I absolutely need to tell you about what went down yesterday on First Take, because it was genuinely one of the most revealing and organizational dysfunction exposing discussions about Golden State Warriors owner Joe Lacob responding to a frustrated fan's email saying, "You can't be as frustrated as me. I'm working on it. It's complicated. Jimmy is not the problem." And Steve Kerr being forced to downplay the leak while explaining his controversial honoring what the older guys have done over the years, philosophy that's keeping Will Richard DNP'd despite proving he deserves rotation minutes that I've witnessed all season long, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp, Brian Windhorst, and the entire panel spent nearly 4 hours meticulously dissecting the fan, Justin's email saying, "Please do something about this team. Steph needs to drop 50 points every night to win. Team needs a real second option. Jimmy's tools are underutilized playing power forward due to small position players. We have no true center." Lacob's response revealing internal frustration, mentioning style of play, coaches' desires regarding players, league trends, suggesting agenda-based stuff going on within coaching staff, Kerr's explanation that Will Richard is sitting because he's a rookie, and I'm honoring what the older guys have done over the years for chemistry reasons despite Richard offering stability, decision-making, good shooting, the old-school pecking order philosophy where sensitive rotation spots honor veterans even when rookies like Quinton Post pushed out Kevin Looney last year. The theory that Kerr is more worried about maintaining relationships than the big picture, because he's getting ready to ride off into the sunset, wanting to be good with his guys, rather than developing young players long-term. The Jonathan Kuminga situation, where taking an outrageous amount of time for an ankle sprain a year ago soured the relationship more than we know compared to Franz Wagner's similar high ankle sprain recovery timeline. And, most explosively, the prediction that Jimmy Butler, who's aware of optics and narratives, will have a big game against the Suns this week to prove I can do it when I want to, despite his knee not being right. And the way they methodologically evaluated everything from why Lacob responding to a random fan creates this embarrassing situation, forcing Kerr to answer questions about it, to the phrase, "coach's desires regarding player," indicating agenda-based decision-making, to why Will Richard proving he deserves rotation time in that 30-point Sacramento game should override pecking order philosophy, to the systemic nature of Warriors turnovers coming from a high-pass system with Steph and Draymond as natural risk-takers who've never been punished, to why benching Kevin Looney last year but refusing to bench Buddy Hield now, despite more clear issues, represents inconsistent application of principles, had everyone in the studio absolutely mesmerized. Because this isn't just about one leaked email, this is about the Warriors exposing deep organizational dysfunction with an owner publicly frustrated about coaching decisions, a coach prioritizing veteran relationships over winning because his career is ending, a rotation philosophy that contradicts itself by honoring some veterans while benching others, and a franchise championship window closing while they refuse to make difficult personnel decisions that could extend their competitiveness. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump in, let me ask you something that takes 1 second. That like button? Hitting it right now helps this channel more than you know. It's how we reach thousands more fans with this content. Just smash that like button real quick. It's the biggest way you can support what we're building here. Every like matters, so hit it now. So, First Take opens, and Stephen A. Smith has this absolutely scandal-revealing intensity, like he's about to expose internal Warriors dysfunction through a leaked communication, and Stephen A. immediately establishes that y'all know what they say, loose lips sink ships. And we had a little leak coming from the Warriors organization from the top, from owner Joe Lacob. And Stephen A. talks about how this wasn't leaked from the Warriors, but a frustrated fan who sent Joe Lacob an email and got a response that's now public. And Stephen A. reads the fan Justin's email saying, Dear Joe, please do something about this team. What Steph needs to do every night to win is drop 50 points. Team is in need of a real second option. Jimmy's tools are being underutilized because he's playing as a power forward due to the small position players. We have no true center. I'm so frustrated. And Stephen A. reads Lacob's response saying, "You can't be as frustrated as me. I'm working on it. It's complicated. Style of play, coaches' desires regarding players, league trends. Jimmy is not the problem." And Stephen A. keeps emphasizing, owner responded publicly, frustrated internally, coaches' desires regarding players, making it abundantly clear there's organizational tension. Shannon Sharpe, who's always been incredibly vocal about organizational dysfunction, immediately jumps in discussing Kerr's response. And Shannon talks about how Steve Kerr downplayed it, as you would have expected. And look, it's not any secret how Joe Lacob feels within the building, and Steve knows this. And Shannon makes this argument that where Kerr may be a little irritated is like, Joe, why are you responding to a random fan? This is what's going to happen. And now, here I am, having to answer questions about it. There's probably that little bit of irritation. And Shannon explains that, but it is telling that Joe used that phrase, coaches' desires regarding players, kind of indicating there may be agenda-based stuff going on within the coaches about who they believe in, who they don't, who they like, who they don't. And Shannon keeps saying, Kerr is irritated. Why respond to random fan? Agenda-based decisions. Making it clear this creates unnecessary drama. Brian Windhorst then introduces what he thinks is the most telling quote, which is about Will Richards' DNPs, and Windhorst talks about how the most telling quote from yesterday, when it comes to Steve Kerr, had to do with rookie Will Richard, and why he's been DNP'd the last week, ending up out of the rotation. And Windhorst reads Kerr's explanation when asked about plans for Richard, saying, well, you just can't play more than 10 or 11, and we're getting healthy. Not completely healthy, but almost there, so it's been tough not playing him because I'm a huge fan and believer, and he offers us stability, decision-making, good shooting, so he's just got to stay with it. And Windhorst reads the critical part, where Kerr says, right now he's frankly sitting, because he's a rookie, and I'm honoring what the older guys have done over the years. I think that's good for chemistry. This is kind of how it goes. Guys have to earn their stripes. You give everybody a fair look, and then continue through the season, so he could very easily find himself back in the rotation. And Windhorst keeps emphasizing honoring older guys, earn their stripe, chemistry over winning, making it clear this is old-school philosophy. Stephen A. Smith then makes what I thought was the most damning assessment about this pecking order philosophy. And Stephen A. talks about how that's old-school pecking order stuff. And he does believe within a team there are sensitive rotation spots. Not everyone, but there are sensitive spots. And Stephen A. makes this passionate argument that perhaps you can look to why Kevon Looney is playing for the Pelicans this year. Quinton Post, a rookie last year, did he honor what Kevon had done over the years? But ultimately, your job as a coach is the bigger picture. And Stephen A. explains that it's nice to honor and chemistry does matter and pecking order in spots. But if it's ultimately not what's best for the team, then you're not doing your job as a coach. And Stephen A. makes this critical assessment that he'll reiterate what he said the other day. Steve Kerr right now is more worried about maintaining relationships rather than the big picture, because he's getting ready to ride off into the sunset. What do I care about the long-term development? I want to be good with my guys and be able to go home good with myself, because this is coming to an end for me. And Stephen A. keeps saying Kerr prioritizes relationships, riding into sunset, not worried about big picture, making it absolutely clear this is compromised coaching. Shannon Sharpe then connects this to the Jonathan Kuminga situation, which represents the pattern. And Shannon talks about how what people automatically go back to is Kuminga, because this is kind of how it started with him getting DNPs after playing well type of situation. And Shannon makes this fascinating point that he thinks Kuminga, taking as long as he did on that ankle a year ago, soured the relationship more than we know. It was an outrageous amount of time for an ankle sprain. And Shannon explains he wanted to point to Franz Wagner, who had about as bad a high ankle sprain as you could get the other day in New York at the same age and same-sized player. Let's see how long Franz takes to get back and connect the dots. And Shannon makes this argument that Kuminga takes a weird amount of time for that ankle injury. Then the first game this year he doesn't start and doesn't come out of the locker room. Then it's announced he's got knee soreness for 10-11 days at 22 years old, when they all have knee soreness. And Shannon keeps saying ankle recovery was suspicious, games being played, relationships soured, making it clear there were availability issues behind the scene. Brian Windhorst then addresses the contradiction in how this pecking order philosophy is applied inconsistently. And Windhorst talks about how when you want to point at Will Richards' DNPs, Kerr also brought up DeAnthony Melton and Lindy Waters getting DNPs, but we all see it's the Buddy Hield minutes that are the issue. And Windhorst makes this passionate argument that Buddy Hield hasn't even been on the team 2 seasons. You were willing to bench Looney last year, but you're not willing to bench Buddy in a situation that's even more clear. That's the issue right now. And Windhorst explains that Looney was such a good soldier, and that's the point. When you want to honor veterans, it should be consistent, but instead, it's selective, based on agendas. And Windhorst keeps emphasizing inconsistent application. Benched Looney, not Buddy. Selective honoring. Making it clear the philosophy contradicts itself. Stephen A. Smith then shifts to discussing the systemic turnover problem Kerr keeps stressing, and Stephen A. talks about how the other thing Steve keeps continuing to stress is the turnovers. If we don't turn the ball over, this is why we're losing. But the turnovers are systemic at this point, and Stephen A. makes this comprehensive argument that not only does the system naturally create more turnovers because there's more passing, but you've got Steph and Draymond, who are natural risk takers, and Steve has never punished them for it, and he gets it, because it's hard to punish superstars. And Stephen A. explains that it's a cultural thing at this point. You've got a high-pass system, and your 2 leaders are risk-takers, and Kerr is part of this, having cultivated this. So there's always going to be turnovers. And Stephen A. makes this point that yes, it's the ones stepping out of bounds and careless ones that matter, but there's a gray area. And for Draymond and Steph, their instinct is to thread the needle and make high-risk passes, because they've reached that level and had success, so they think it's all possible. And Stephen A. keeps saying, turnovers are systemic. Kerr cultivated this. Can't punish superstars, making it clear this is organizational culture, not individual mistake. But then Shannon Sharpe makes an interesting prediction about Jimmy Butler's upcoming performance, and Shannon talks about how Jimmy Butler is very aware of the optics and narrative in the NBA around him and his team, and he can almost guarantee with this baseball series against the Suns coming up this week and weekend, we're going to get a big Jimmy Butler game in one of those. And Shannon explains, it'll be like, hey, okay, look, I can do it when I want to, I can do it when I want to, and that would be his prediction though. He'd also say, they probably split against this Suns team, who seems like their competition, along with the Wolves, for staying out of the play-in. And Shannon makes this sobering point that they're already 5 games out of the 6th seed, so the urgency is real. And Shannon keeps emphasizing Butler aware of narrative, will have big game, can do it when he wants, making it clear this is performance management, not actual limitations. What really struck me watching this entire First Take segment was how Joe Lacob's leaked email response to a frustrated fan saying, "You can't be as frustrated as me, I'm working on it, it's complicated," exposed deep organizational dysfunction, with the telling phrase, coaches' desires regarding players, indicating agenda-based decision-making rather than merit-based evaluation, and Steve Kerr being forced to explain Will Richards' DNPs by admitting he's frankly sitting because he's a rookie, and I'm honoring what the older guys have done over the years. For chemistry, despite Richard offering stability, decision-making, good shooting, reveals old-school pecking order philosophy, where the coach prioritizes maintaining veteran relationships over winning because he's riding off into the sunset and doesn't care about long-term development. And I think the clear consensus was, that this represents compromised coaching, where Kerr can't honestly evaluate talent because he's worried about being good with his guys rather than the big picture, with the Jonathan Kuminga situation showing how taking an outrageous amount of time for an ankle sprain soured the relationship, leading to games being played about availability, the systemic turnover problem being organizational culture, cultivated by Kerr through a high-pass system with Steph and Draymond as natural risk-takers who've never been punished, the inconsistent application of the pecking order philosophy where Kevon Looney got benched last year for rookie Quinton Post, but Buddy Hield, who's been there less than 2 seasons, can't be benched despite more clear issues, and the prediction that Jimmy Butler, who's aware of optics, will have a big game against the Suns to prove he can do it when he wants, despite his knee not being right. So the Warriors are spiraling, not just because of on-court problems, but because organizational dysfunction, with an owner publicly frustrated about coaching decisions, a coach prioritizing relationships over merit, and agenda-based player evaluation is preventing them from making the difficult personnel decisions necessary to extend their championship window before it completely closes.